You're listening to ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Your sports, your teams, your city.
And from Chicago, Windy City Underground Sports proudly presents the show where everything sports, everything Chicago. KJ Sports Talk.
All right. Good afternoon. This is KJ with KJ Sports Show on Chicago Sportsland Radio, and today we're gonna have a good one. I have a special guest joining me today. It'll be Brandon. All right. First thing first, we have our guy. As it has been announced earlier, that the Bears have just signed Drew Dalman to a 3-year, $42 million deal, $28 million guaranteed. Obviously, that is the biggest thing that I wanted in the free agency. You know, the Bears needed the beef eaters, and also on top of signing him, they also traded for Jonah Jackson, who was a Pro Bowler under Ben Johnson and his 3 seasons with Detroit. And we also traded for Joe Thuney, all-pro guard from Kansas City. He was all-pro his last 2 seasons as first-team all-pro. Then the 2 seasons prior to that, he was second-team all-pro. And we got him for a fourth-round pick. Now, get it. Even though he's 32 years old, I could still imagine, I still see that he has some years left ahead of him. As we know, offensive linemen is a different bracket than the regular players. They can play a little longer than the position players, and their offense is more important. So, all right. So, Brandon, what you think about it?
Yeah, man. Look, when you get a guy like Joe Thuney, who is a 2-time All-Pro, something that the Bears haven't had in a very, very long time, right? Like you get a guy who can come in and not only can be a leader of this team, but can be a guy that really steps forward and really helps protect Caleb Williams, right? And not only do you get Joe Thuney, but before that you get Jonah Jackson. Today you get Drew Dalman. You get all those pieces, and now you're building up this interior offensive line the way the fans have been clamoring for 5-10 years now, right? Like even through all the Justin Fields years, even through all of the back end of even, this goes all the way back to Jay Cutler years. We're screaming for an offensive line, and now the Bears are finally getting there.
Yeah, we haven't had an offensive line like this since Olin Cruz era, since the Horonis Garcia era.
Yeah.
So it's been years, So, I'm excited. I'm trying to keep my excitement down because everything looks good on paper, but it's up. Once you get on that field and perform, then we'll see how it really goes.
Yeah, man, and that's the big thing for the Bears, right? It's something that we ran into last year, where you get excited for the offseason, right? Like they do so many things. You're like, all right, here we go. We get Caleb Williams, and we're like, oh, the Bears they put Caleb Williams in the best situation of all time, and we forgot, oh man, the coaching, right?
Right.
Now, that was something I said before the draft. If they didn't get it right with the coaches, if the offensive coordinator wasn't correct, if they missed again, if the head coach was as bad as we thought he was going to be, and Matt Eberflus, that's just that it wasn't going to be good, and it didn't matter who you took in the draft. And that's exactly what ended up happening, right? But now you look at where the Bears are now. You got the head coach that everybody wanted.
Right.
You're getting a center that was highly guarded. You're getting a guy in Joe Thuney who's coming from 2 winning organizations, first the Patriots, then the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right.
Has won Super Bowls, knows how to win. And then you go and you get a guy who had a really good season, although he did get hurt, in Jonah Jackson, has had a really good couple of seasons playing offensive guard. I like what they're doing, but you've got to see it translate on the field, right? Like you've got to see this produce victories, and that's so far for the Bears. I call it BTSD, Bears traumatic stress disorder. And
we suffer from it,
but we just don't believe it.
Obviously, like I said, like you have that. Then obviously your position group is good. All you need now is you need a legit receiver. Obviously, so one of the person I've been listening to is Steve Smith Sr. He was from a lot of people don't know, he's like one of my favorite receivers of all time. Mm-hmm. He's also famous for calling out the Cooper Kupp. He predicted that Cooper Kupp would be as big as he was. Nobody else saw it when he did. So So obviously, when it comes to receiver, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said is that he believed Roma Dunze should be at his best in the slot. And I heard Ben Johnson mention that, that I heard it been mentioned before, prior, like, with this new coaching staff, that Rome should be seeing some slot time in the slot. So obviously we're gonna see how that goes. So if we're gonna do Rome in the slot, we obviously we know how DJ Moore is on the outside. Even before he became a Bears, so if he would have played his whole career in the Bears, prior to him playing ever a snapper down, like his first 4 seasons, he would have had the most receiving yards of all time as a Bears. As Bears receiver, and that shows you the lack of a true receiver that we really had in all years, or the lack of talent that our receivers been. Because if we go underrated, we had guys that could perform like the Alshon Jeffries, the Brandon Marshalls, the Johnny Knox prior to injuries, but no other receiver has looked as good right now that I could obviously say that DJ Moore is probably has future as bright as his, as the currency speaker, but besides maybe Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah, look, when you're looking at the Bears and what they have for weapons, when you're talking about putting, whether if you're having Rome in the slot, then you need a number 2, right? And I don't know that you're going to retain Keenan Allen. I don't know who your number 2 is going to be.
Right.
Eventually you want Rome to be your number 1, right? Like, I mean,
exactly.
You drafted Rome at 9 to be your number 1. So if now you're talking about you're going to put him in a slot, see if you can utilize him in a slot as opposed to the number 2, I need to see who the number 2 is going to be. Like, who are you going to get? Are you doing this in free agency? Is there somebody that you're seeing in the draft that I'm not seeing? Because to me, I see this as a really bad quarterback and really bad wide receiver class. So I don't know that you're going to get any of that in the draft. So I'd have to see who it's going to be. But if you get Rome in the slot, I mean, dude, a guy that size in the slot running across the middle, I like what the Bears are doing, man.
Right. So yeah, I mean, even then it's like, so yeah, I would love to see it. I mean, but it's like, and then it's like that's just that receiving group, obviously. But now we could go. I mean, you're right. We probably is gonna need a number 2, but and what you think about our running back situation? Because I know we have DeAndre Swift, but the issue is like, and it's like a rumor is that the Bears have been doing their extensive research on running backs. So like if you look at the draft running backs, like it's kind of like unworthy. Like if you wouldn't think that the running back was positioned to need, like you wouldn't know what the Bears are doing. It's like. Yeah. Like you'll be wondering, like, why they're interviewing so many running backs, like especially all the top running backs. They interview Gentry, they interview Cam Scatterbo, they interview Caleb Johnson, they interview Marion Hampton. It's like they're not doing this just just because they're the top guys. They have, if Ryan Poles, he has an idea. Ben Johnson has a way he wants to do his game. And the fact is that DeAndre Swift only less than 1 season under him in Detroit kind of spells rumors. And where's there smoke, there could be fire.
Yeah, no, it for sure. The one thing I don't want is I don't want Ashton Genty at 10, right? Like
exactly.
you cannot go running back at 10, especially when you got guys like Omari and Hampton, forget Travion Henderson, you got Cam Scatterbo, you got all these guys that are going to be available in later rounds. You've got picks 39 and 41 as well in the second round. So
right.
If you really want a running back and you take your offensive lineman at 10 or your defensive lineman at 10, and then you work on you can get Omari and Hampton, I believe, at 39, or Travion Henderson or Cam Scatterbo, because you can get these guys that are going to be just as, maybe not even just as productive, but close to just as productive as what you're going to get out of Ashton Genty. Now, I know a lot of people are talking about Ashton Genty and like he's going to be the second coming of Adrian Peterson or something. I just don't see that from a guy coming out of the Mountain West Conference. Yes, I know he averaged 200 yards a game, but you're talking about a guy who averaged 200 yards a game in the Mountain West Conference or Boise State, like playing against teams like Idaho State and playing against, this is some competition that's not quite what you're going to see in the NFL. So I don't think you're going to get that type of production from him. I think he can be a decent back in the NFL, but in the NFL where you can get a running back at anywhere, to be honest with you, in the draft, it's been proven you can get a quality running back later on in the draft, and unless they're like a Saquon Barkley type, which I don't believe in my opinion that Ashton Genty is, then it's just I don't know that it's worth a first round pick. So I think DeAndre Swift will end up going somewhere else because I mean he didn't fit in Ben Johnson's scheme the first time in Detroit, and that's why Detroit let him go, and that's how the Bears ended up landing him. But you're going to see something happen now. Another thing that I could think of the Bears doing if they don't go offensive line or defensive line, and if you stay away from running back, is taking one of the top 2 tight ends available to go to put on the other side of what you got already with Cole Kmet. I know they're kind of down on Cole Kmet right now because of the couple of seasons that he's had, but Cole Kmet's a dog. And if you go and add, the tight end from Penn State or the tight end from Michigan, and you add those guys to Cole Kmet, now all of a sudden you've got 2 stud tight ends on each side. You can run a 3 tight end set or a 5 wide set, I should say, with 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and you're giving Caleb Williams all of the options that are out there in all of these weapons. And I just think it's prime for the Bears. But I think staying away from running back in the first round is what you need to do.
Well, knowing Ryan Poles and what he said when he first came to the Bears, he said he has no problem trading back. Do you think that's an option? Especially with the Drew Dalman, the Jonah Jackson, and Joe Thuney deal. Do you now that the Bears at first, prior to we had to draft an offensive lineman. We desperately needed one. So Kelvin Banks Jr. and Will Campbell was definitely our top 2 priority. But with the recent trades and now our offensive lineman is no longer being considered a weak point of ours, and now we're just needing depth. Do you think, that there's a possibility that we'll trade back and try to get more draft capital?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can definitely see them trading back. I mean, if you trade back, you could still get a tackle if you trade back, especially if it's going to bring you more draft capital in the future.
Right.
If you trade back, let's say you trade back with, I'm trying to think of who's available behind them that might want to trade up. I mean, you could look at probably the Colts that might want to trade up. You could look at the Bengals who might want to trade up. Like, what if you did a pick swap and plus add a 2nd round pick in for Hendrickson, right? Now, say you did a pick swap and now you're picking at 17. You're still going to have plenty of options available. Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, could be available. You're looking at Armand Membu, who I actually want the Bears to go at 10, might still be available later on. Even if he's not, you still got a guy like Kelvin Banks Jr., who I think might be the most underrated tackle in this first round class. I think that they've got a lot of options there. And I think Ryan Poles is a really smart dude, man. Ryan Poles is a really, really smart football guy, and you're starting to see that come out now that it kind of looks like the McCaskies are stepping aside and allowing football people to make football decisions. So for him to trade back, I definitely think it's an option, especially if they're looking at somebody at 10 and they think that they can get somebody equally as good later on in the draft and add draft capital at the same time.
Well, that's cool. I want to kind of switch it. I want to talk about a guy who's not a Bears, but who has Bears routes. Roots. I want to talk about DK Metcalf, who I mentioned because he is the son and nephew of former Bears players. So he was recently traded to the Steelers for like a 2nd round pick. Almost like immediately after the rumors that he was allowed to pursue a trade. What do you think of that?
I mean, Metcalf to the Steelers is interesting, right? Because they're still kind of in flux with what they're doing with their quarterback situation. Are they going to build around Fields? Are they going to, let Fields walk? And are they going to keep Russell Wilson? And now I'm hearing that in the mix is, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So now if you have Aaron Rodgers is in the mix, and let's say you do add Aaron Rodgers, is something I was talking about with a buddy of mine this morning. If you do get Aaron Rodgers, you let Russell Wilson walk and you keep Justin Fields, and you let Justin Fields learn with all of the tools that he has with his legs. You let him learn from a top 5 pocket passer all time in Aaron Rodgers. I think that could do him a lot of good. Not to mention you just added DK Metcalf to this and giving him that weapon. I like what the Steelers are building. I like their roster. I like their wide receivers room. And obviously they got one of the best coaches in all of the NFL in Mike Tomlin. So now you add DK Metcalf to George Pickens and Van Jefferson. They've obviously got one of the better tight ends in the league in Pat Freiermuth. They got another young kid at tight end who's coming up in Darnell Washington. And don't forget they got the depth at wide receiver with Calvin Austin and Mike Williams. So they've got some weapons, man. If they have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, I think this could be a decent year for the people in Pittsburgh.
I love how you say Aaron Rodgers because I have questions. Like, if they was to sign Aaron Rodgers, what version of him would they be getting? It's like, is this the because we let's be honest, this is not the Aaron Rodgers that of old they used to terrorize my Bears. Like this is an older Aaron Rodgers who's not as mobile, whose arm might not have that same pop that it used to have back in the day that it does. So is it like is it really worth it? You know, because I'm saying like even then, like comparing him to, I mean, real Russell Wilson. I mean, obviously you have Mike Tomlin. You know, his look at his resume. He doesn't have a losing record. You know, which is almost unheard of. You know, the fact that you could say that Bill Belichick had a losing record before Mike Tomlin. You know, and Bill Belichick is highly regarded as one of the greatest coaches of all time.
So when people keep saying, I've heard this quite a bit, that it's not the same Aaron Rodgers of old.
Right.
He was on a really bad Jets team this year, right?
True.
Like a really bad Jets team. Still threw for 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions on a really bad Jets team. And as Bears fans, we would know that we would kill for numbers like that in a Bears uniform. So when you're taking a motivated now, a guy who the Jets have said, no, we don't want you, we just go away. We're going to let you go away and do whatever you want to do. I think you're going to get a motivated Aaron Rodgers. You're going to get an Aaron Rodgers who's got a chip on his shoulder now, even at the age of 41, who can come in here and know that, hey, I've got a year or two left. I'm still in the AFC. I'm still going to face the Jets. I'm still going to be able to put my mark on things. And now I could possibly go out and win a Super Bowl with one of the best coaches of all time. I mean, that's that for me. I think that's the move for the Steelers. I think it's the smartest move for the Steelers.
Right. I mean, but and then speak back and let's go back to the Jets. Like, if you're the Jets, what do you do with them? Because as like I refer to as I've been talking to people and I've been hearing rumors of quarterbacks potentially going to the Jets. I always say no because like if you're a quarterback and I'm like unless the Jets or the Cleveland Browns are your last two options where you have to sign with them or you're not going to be in the league.
Yeah.
Then I'm pretty sure like you probably don't want to sign with them because like you look at two teams like that. People like players go there for their career to die, you know. Like obviously, you used to be able to say the same about Detroit back in the day, like because what they did with Barry Sanders' career and Calvin Johnson's career is still unfathomable. You know, looking at Myles Garrett, he tried to request a trade in order for him to get him to stay. You had to pay him a bunch of money just for him to even deal with this. Like, or better yet, Joe Bonito, or you can even go back to Joe Thomas, you know, who was an All-Pro tackle. I don't think he ever played in the playoffs in his Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, and look, you got a new head coach over there in New York. They're trying to change the culture.
Right.
Here's my thing with that. What if the Steelers and just did a quarterback swap? Russell Wilson for Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? Because now you're still going to get a veteran. You can still draft a guy high in the draft, whether it's Jackson Dart, whether it's Shedeur Sanders, whether it's Cam Moore, whoever you can get at where you're picking. Where are they picking in the draft? I think they're like 7th or 8th or something like that. You can still get a guy that is capable of developing in your system. Now, I don't think, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think Cam Ward, I don't think Shedeur Sanders, I don't think Jackson Dart, I don't think any of those guys are day one starters who can change or alter your franchise. But I do believe that Russell Wilson can bring along a guy like a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders and really hone in what they're doing. And then if you give them a year or two to learn under a guy like that, then I think you might have something in those quarterbacks. And I'm not saying that these guys are going to come out and be all pro quarterbacks because I'm not sure that they have that in them. But what you can do is allow them to sit behind a veteran and learn for a couple of years. And we've seen that work time after time in Green Bay. So you do know that is an effective system to work. So we'll see. I mean, they still do have weapons in Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and Xavier Gibson. You know what I mean? So they do still have a lot of weapons over there. Breece Hall's still there. Braylon Allen's still there. They've got a decent offensive line, not the best offensive line. So if you got to shore that up a little bit to protect whichever quarterback you have, especially if you end up with Russell Wilson, because his legs aren't there anymore.
I mean, that's like the thing. It's like, even when Aaron Rodgers, you say he's still put up producing numbers, like you look at the receivers, like you would have one of the best up and coming receivers in Garrett Wilson. It's like as a quarter, and he's one of those type, but he's like a top receiver. It's like you don't have to throw it to you, just have to throw it around.
Yeah.
Like, and speaking of throwing too and not having me throwing around, it's been a lot of talks about the Travis Hunter situation. So,
Yeah.
I've heard people, say it, from NFL, former NFL players, to, even my teachers who I've been talking to in class, like, and here's the possibility that, when he come out, like, what position should he play? Do he have the capability of doing a two-way thing? Like, I want to get pick your brain on it. Like, what do you think about it?
So I think he can be a guy that he's probably going to. It just depends on your team need, right? Do you need
Right.
cornerback? Do you need wide receiver? So whichever team that he goes on, I believe he ends up being a defensive back, and I believe that he can be a guy that plays 5 or 10 snaps a game as a wide receiver as well. He can kind of be like the defensive version of Taysom Hill over in New Orleans, where you can run a couple of things. He can be kind of a gimmick guy. He's a guy that can line up for you at wide receiver, maybe run a couple end arounds, do that type of thing. But I don't think that he can be. I don't think he's going to be Dion. You know what I mean? Like when Dion played, and I don't know if you're old enough to remember when Dion played.
Dallas, it was mostly the Dallas years when he was a receiver.
But when he was with the Falcons, man, and I'm telling you, Deion Sanders is one of the best athletes I've ever seen. I watched that man in Atlanta intercept a ball on a Sunday at 1:00 and then go hit a home run in the World Series that night at 8:00 for the Atlanta Braves. Right. I've seen this man play some ball. So I don't know that he's going to be quite to that level because Dion was elite on both sides of the football.
Right.
So I think that, but I think that a shutdown corner and a guy who can probably catch 25 to 30 passes for you a year, I think that's very capable for Travis Hunter. I think he is, to me, he's the number 1 pick in the draft. He should be the number 1 pick in the draft, but I do know that, there's going to be probably a quarterback or a defensive end that goes ahead of him.
All right. I agree to disagree. I think just like, you were setting the bar too low, I mean, you say he might not be the athlete that Dion is. Truth be told is, Dion seen it, Dion and from the words of Dion out, whether he's just trying to overhype him or not.
Yeah.
I don't think Dion, I think Dion sees that he could somehow surpass Dion. Even if you take the look at Charles Wilson, a guy who's done it both in college, he even said that he's nowhere near the athlete of Travis Hunter. And I'm looking at him like, so when I see 25 to 30 passes, I disagree. I say if he goes cornerback, I think he can get more snaps, because this is a guy, where he's a rarity. Most people like him, they're super egos. They're egomaniac. They're the life of the party. This is a guy who wants to play football, who takes it very seriously, who's always studying. If you listen to his coaches, he's always the first in line. He's always pushing people. He's always practicing. This is his life, Like he really puts himself in position and does this. Like then you go look at his plays. Like some of his plays, like unbelievable. Like you don't like the plays he make. You don't think that he could. I feel like he could make more plays. Like because like when you have talent, then you have the mental capacity. Then you actually go and you dedicate your life to this, and you does it the way he does it. Like it's impossible for you to just say just to go low like 25, 30. I believe he could go. I believe he could get 50 football passes, 50 catches if he's a defensive back. Just because it's impossible doesn't mean it can't be done. I'm not.
So, don't you think that it matter? Well, one, it's a different NFL than it was back when Dion was playing. Right?
Exactly.
Like it's a much different NFL. So I think that it protects players like this a little bit more. So like you could be right, like where he gets more snaps on the offensive side of the ball. I can listen to that argument. I think one depends on where he goes, right? Because if he goes to, somewhere like New England, if he goes somewhere like Jacksonville or somewhere like the Raiders, I just don't know that with contracts and with the way things go and with injury, even if let's say they do start him out as an elite two-way player, right? Where he's just going to play the same amount of snaps he was playing in Colorado on an NFL field, okay? That first injury, that's going to cause a team to pause because this is my asset.
Right.
I picked you high in the draft. I think you are an elite talent. I think you are an elite player. but I am risking you to some injuries, to too much stuff by letting you play on both sides of the ball, and now you're hurt. It's going to stop me from allowing you to continue playing both sides of the ball. It's the same way when you look at, taking it back to a different argument that I've had with many of people. It's the LeBron debate, right? And people will say, oh, well, LeBron couldn't play in the 90s and blah, blah. I think that's false. I think LeBron could play in the 90s. He would have just trained differently. He would have been a different guy. He would have been a guy they forced to just be a power forward. He wouldn't have been allowed to play all the positions he plays now. And it's going to be the same way with Travis Hunter. You're going to protect your asset. You're not going to allow him to play all these different positions that he can play. I think the kid's ultra talented. I hope he falls to 10. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't see a team, even if they do allow it to happen at first, I don't see a team allowing him to take that many snaps in order to catch that many balls on offense. I just don't.
See, here's the thing. I never said snaps. I never said anything about him playing both like the same amount of snaps. I don't, as much as I would want him to do that, I don't think it's possible for him to do it.
Yeah.
Because the fact is, just like how you said, they're gonna want to protect the assets. I just think 25 to 30 catches is too low because this is a guy when he's on the field, he's gonna make plays. Put him when there's a play he needs to make and he has the opportunity to make it, he's gonna make plays Put like this, like last season in Colorado, nobody thought of him as a hitter, but when the Colorado needed him the most, he put his head on the ball and got a forced fumble that was able to help Colorado out. So he took off a whole side of the field, and then like I said, you go back and look at some of his catches, unbelievable catches. It's so that's what I'm saying. 20, if you have a guy like that, he's on the field, whether he's on the field for 40% of your snaps or even 30% of the snap, it's impossible to not throw him the ball because if I throw it up, it's not a 50-50 ball. It's more of a 70-30 in his favor because he's type of player that's gonna go out there and he's gonna go get it. He's no position and it gives him an edge because yes, a lot of receivers, they're just strictly on wide receiver, but he could look at a cornerback and say, okay, I kind of know what you're going to do because how would I stop me as a corner? That gives him a better edge than most receivers because he knows how to play it very well and he does it. I mean, so
yeah, I think you're right, because he is a playmaker. But I think it depends on what the team is drafting him to be.
Right.
If you're a team that is all right, you know what? I think this guy can be an elite wide receiver at this level.
Right. And
I'm drafting you to be a wide receiver. Then I'm not drafting you to be a shutdown corner. Right. Because it's just, look, he was amazing at Colorado, but it was Colorado. You know what I mean? You're playing. It's a lot different playing against the Houston Texans and the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers than it is playing against Colorado State and Boise State and all these other teams that you're going to face at Colorado. I just don't. And I'm with you. I really think that the guy is elite on both sides of the ball. I really do. I just don't know that in today's NFL you're going to be allowed to be that. And it's not that he can't do it. I just don't think he will be allowed to do it.
I don't know. it's kind of hard because he's it's because you gotta have to, your player is gonna be your guy. It's and the thing is he gonna I don't know if he I don't know the snaps. I don't believe he'll take that many snaps, but it's all I'm saying is for a guy like him, if he was whatever he needs, he doesn't need many snaps to make his point. He's the type of guy if he's on defense, you're probably not going to want to throw him the ball. You're probably not. He's like a Dion. You're probably not going to look at that side. He's going to take away a whole side. If he's on offense, he's probably not. He might. Like I say, he might do. I don't see him being as a gadget guy because that's kind of not his. That's not because you're not going to want to use him as a gadget guy. Why would you? Because you're probably setting him up for more injuries if you use him as a gadget. Unless it's you're probably going to. Even if say he plays defense primarily. Even if he go lower than 40, maybe 30-20% of his snaps, he do 20% of snaps a game. Say he probably get 10-15 plays a game off offense. Still even then, he still could get 2-3 catches, and if he does 2-3 catches, go by 17. I'm still think he could go 30. Maybe I was too much with the 50, but But I still think 30 to 40, but like 25 is to 30 is still kind of low for me. It's like I still see him like making a presence on both because that's him. Like he's one of those guys I could look at. He's kind of stubborn. It's like he's gonna find a way to do it. Like, and it's like he's gonna try it. He's gonna
Yeah.
try. And I always say like, and if I'm a team, I'd rather him try it at first and let's see how it goes for a couple games, or better yet, preseason. That's even a perfect amount. Let's see how it goes during preseason. Let's see how does this work out? How does it affect his body? And then we're gonna go forward from that. It's like I would rather take this opportunity, take this little risk now, just because it might work out. And if it doesn't work out, we can stick you to one side.
So let's say let's do this. Let's say it goes the way that I expect it to go, right? Where the Titans take Abdul Carter at 1,
Right.
the Browns take Cam Ward at 2 because they're stupid. The Giants take Shador Sanders at 3 because they're stupid. Where is Travis Hunter fitting in? Is he going to New England? Is he going to end up in Jacksonville at 5? Like, who do you think takes that chance? Because I'm telling you right now, if he goes to Cleveland or if he goes to New England, I know this franchise very well because I lived up in New England for a little while. So I've been around this franchise and I've been around Robert Kraft enough to know he's not going to be a two-way player in New England. He's not. They will not allow him to be a two-way player in New England. Like they might not even use him as a gadget guy on one side or the other. Like that's just not who the New England Patriots are. Jacksonville maybe, the Raiders maybe, and the Jets maybe. But if he goes to 4 to New England, we're talking about this guy being a cornerback.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, if we always say it's like, well, you always thought with Robert Kraft that it'd be Bill Belichick. So Robert Kraft shows you that he's unpredictable at times. Like you would have thought that. I mean, not everybody would have thought. I mean, unless you were like a true football guy,
Yeah,
you would have thought that Tom Brady was going to finish his career out with New England. Like,
right.
because some people who watch the football like me and stuff, you kind of seen it was coming to a bad end. With Bill Belichick, you didn't think that I didn't think Bill Belichick personally was going to get fired. I didn't think they would have hired Gerard Mayo as to be the head coach.
Well, I never thought you'd get Robert Kraft at an Asian massage parlor either, but I do know that things kind of surprise you, right? But
exactly.
I just don't. I mean, I get it. Where do you think he goes though? You think the Patriots will snatch him up at 4 if he's there?
I mean, it's kind of hard not to, but it's like at the same time, but it's like I would hope that he would go number 1 because it's like for the first time I actually agreed with LaShawn McCoy take. I never thought I would agree with it.
Yeah,
he's the best available player. It's like available. It's like you need that type of guy. You get a 2-for-1 type of pick. You have a guy that can. Like I don't believe in that. Oh, you have to be a quarterback or a pass rusher just to change the game. If that's the case, then you hear guys like Jerry Rice, you hear guys like Terrell Owens, you see guys like Saquon Barkley. Better yet, this year alone, Saquon Barkley was the answer for the Philadelphia Eagles. He was the reason why they won it. Like, so you see guys like that, and then it's like now you're seeing position players step up and do things. Like even today, J.C. Horn, when he was awarded like a major contract, is like you see guys they have the ability. Deion Sanders, game changer. If people don't believe me, when y'all get a chance, just go check in like the top 10 cornerback duels of all time. Deion Sanders is on there by himself. I think he would rank like last time I checked was like number 7 with Deion Sanders and anybody else. That's how you know you're a game changer. It doesn't matter who's on the other side of you. You could be that. And I see that with Travis Hunter, like he has a chance to be a game changer. So if he falls to 4, you're just adding a bigger chip to his shoulder than that was already there. Like you don't, like I say, because you have a rarity of a guy that who's a superstar but super humble. And always he wants to play. He just wants to do well. He's not flashy. He's like, so it's like a guy that I always follow. Like I follow his Facebook. I look at him stuff like he's a good kid, like who definitely who's about his football, about his books. Look at his GPA. He had a high GPA coming out. But credits to him and credits to Deion for taking him. Look at his loyalty. He felt like he could go somewhere with Deion and learn football. It was about strictly learning from the best. So he didn't chase the Power 5 school. He at his time at the time the best was at Jackson State.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say he left Jackson State to follow Dion.
then he went to Colorado.
Yep.
He shows you he could produce, and this is not no regular talent that we're just talking about. No regular fall star. We're talking about the number one talent coming out of high school. He was the best player in high school. Came into college. Then once he got his throne, he was the best player in college. It's hard to argue.
I don't disagree with you. I would have Travis Hunter to me is the number one pick. Like,
yeah.
He to me is the best player on the board, and no disrespect to Mason Graham or Abdul Carter, but Travis Hunter is that dude. But here's the thing: is that you're going to go based off of team needs, right? And the top 3 teams obviously need a quarterback. And
but
even though there's not, and again, I don't think that any of these quarterbacks are ready, but I do think that these teams get desperate. And that's not to say that these teams aren't going to be looking for another quarterback in 2027 again.
Correct.
But I just think that that's where they'll end up going. Other than I do think the Titans will end up taking Abdul Carter instead of Travis Hunter.
But speaking of quarterbacks, I actually do think Cam like Shador. So it's like I do think Shador is ready but it's like always about placement though. It's like, where do you put him at? It's like the Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniel. It's like or better yet, I take that back. I want to go back a couple years ago to the Patrick Mahomes situation. So it's like a lot of people was clamoring about Patrick Mahomes saying this or that, but nobody in their right mind thought Patrick Mahomes would be where he's at right now.
Yeah.
So because he was allowed to drop, he dropped that far for a reason. He was a project. No,
he was a losing quarterback at Texas Tech.
Exactly. I mean, what I'm saying, like he was a project coming out. He landed into the hands of Andy Reid, who's arguably, in my opinion, the greatest offensive mind in NFL history. So then on top of that, because like going back to that draft, I always say in my mind the best quarterback in that draft, and I still stand on it to this day because you can't argue with results that Deshaun Watson was the best quarterback.
Absolutely.
Because
that's who the Bears should have taken at 2.
They should have taken him at 3. I never understood the Mitch Trubisky thing. He was a 1-year starter.
Yeah.
And the dude who started over him is not even in the NFL.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if they were going to take a quarterback, if you're going to trade up for a quarterback, as soon as they made the trade, it's funny because I got a buddy who deals in jerseys, right? I got a buddy who sells jerseys. So I called him up and I was like, hey, I said, as soon as they make this pick, I need you to order my Deshaun Watson jersey. As soon as they traded up, because I was like, yo, you're trading up for Deshaun Watson. It's the obvious pick. And then they announced Mitch Trubisky. I said, never mind. I hung up the phone and I was just so shocked. I was like,
me both. Like, I couldn't imagine how Soldier Field must have been.
Like, I understood Mitch Trubisky at the time over Patrick Mahomes because nobody knew Patrick Mahomes was Patrick Mahomes. And to be honest with you, if Patrick Mahomes comes to Chicago, he's not Patrick Mahomes.
No.
Right? But the Deshaun Watson was, I mean, the way he tore up Alabama. Like, I mean, it was different. He was a different dude, and you knew that coming in. I mean, obviously, Deshaun's had his problems ever since off the field with all the stuff, but dude was a beast.
Right,
a beast. He was the number 1 pick in that draft. I agree with you there.
Right, because even then, because prior to that, Clemson actually it was going on when Clemson was making a little run, making them known because they actually had a quarterback prior to him. I think his name was Taj or something. I forgot his last name, but. I was keeping my tabs on Clemson, because like then Deshaun Watson came out of nowhere and blew the spot up. Like he had high expectation to meet, but he just exceeded that.
Yeah.
And it's like, so to continue what he's doing, like I did that. And so with all that being said, to say that now is like, I do think that, you put the right quarterback in the right situation that's for them, you can do wonders. Like Shador, he's not a type of guy you can put him in like in a regular, any type of organization. He has to be in an organization that's about the lights, and I get it. A lot of people like they hate on him because of the way he's talking, like he's brash and all that. But he's a Sanders. His last name is Sanders.
Yeah,
like that's just who he is. He's the type of guy. If he's like, if I can make a play, I'm not gonna wait for you to tell me that I can make a play. I'm gonna let you know that hey, I do this. Like
we do have some breaking news. Not to cut you off, but both the Lions and the Vikings have both just gotten better over the last 2 minutes.
Yeah,
the Vikings have signed former Eagles cornerback Isaiah Rodgers,
and the Lions
2-year, $15 million, and the Lions get
DJ Reed.
So both teams are getting better on the defensive side of the ball, where they were already pretty damn good. So that's kind of a problem for our Bears a little bit, but look, you got a quarterback in Caleb Williams that doesn't throw very many interceptions. So, as for Detroit and Minnesota to beef up at the cornerback position, I think is a smart move for both of them.
All right, so enough with football. I want to take it over to basketball,
Yeah.
and because I'm gonna do that with my daily with my show fun fact. Fun fact:
Okay.
Dawn Staley, she was the coach of Rutgers while she was in the WNBA. So when she was playing for Detroit, she also no for I think Charlotte Sting but during her off season, she was a coach for Rutgers women's basketball. And so I want to give it, and also I mention this because I want to give a shout out to her. She recently won her eighth SEC title. So I think she's currently 8-0 in the SEC championship in her 16th year at South Carolina. So 8 titles, 16 years. That is amazing. So shout out to her for showing complete excellence. Keeping that tied around. She's the reigning champion, reigning national championship winner. So they're looking to have a strong start. And then I also want to say revenge is a dish best served cold because I know earlier they lost to Texas. And then yesterday they held Texas to 16 points in the first half. So that's believed that they was about game planning. So with Dawn Staley, she's arguably making her cases for being one of the greatest coaches in college basketball history. So what do you like? And then with the women's basketball, starting to get a lot of viewership. So what do you see is going on now? Like as far as like title game, like this tournament.
For the men's side or the women's
We're
side?
gonna talk about the men's side a little later, but
Okay.
women's just gonna give it a quick go over.
Yeah. So like for the women's side, look, UCLA is very good. LSU is very good. USC is very good. I love Juju Watkins.
Oh, I do too. She just speaking of Juju, she actually just passed Caitlin Clark for most points in the first. Well, not most points because she's still Kelsey Mitchell still is over them.
Yeah,
but she just passed Caitlin Clark for most. For the points in 2 years, first 2 years. So she's doing her thing. She's, in my opinion, she's gonna be a great once she gets to the league. I can't wait to see her.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I kind of hope that the Sky are able to nab her.
I am praying.
Yeah, so I don't know, man, because this one's really tough to call. I like USC. I need to see the bracket though. I know a lot of people, will come out and they'll be like, oh, I can bet this team to go on a deep run, or I can bet that team to go on a deep run, and I'm just like, I can't bet on anybody to make a deep run until I see the bracket. Because what if USC, LSU, and UCLA all land in the same damn bracket?
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? So it's one of those where once I see it, I can make a decision. But there's so many good women's college basketball teams. I think that you've probably got your top 6, right? Like your UCLA, your South Carolina, your UConn, your USC, Texas, and Duke women, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, Notre Dame's not far behind those girls, and neither is NC State, and neither is LSU.
I mean, obviously LSU is going to be up there because I mean, here's the thing, Texas, because they beat both LSU and South Carolina in the same season.
Don't sleep on TCU's women either. They were 1-3 this year.
Yeah, I mean, they have Haley Van Leet. Yeah. She's an Olympian.
Yeah.
She played in the Olympics. I mean, obviously, so they're going to do wonders. But,
this might be the most wide open women's bracket we've had ever.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, it's like, I already know, like, I know you say you can't do deep run. I mean, it's hard. It's going to be hard for me to say that I don't see South Carolina not having a deep run. Because it's like, it almost came to expectation that South Carolina, they're going to do something.
Let's say South Carolina is the 1 seed, right?
Yeah.
Now, what happens if South Carolina is the 1, TCU's the 2 in that same bracket, LSU's the 3 in that same bracket, and let's say Baylor women is the 4? Like in that same side of the bracket. Now all of a sudden you're looking at this and you're like, man, they're rough. Like this is gonna be a rough road ahead.
I mean,
and now all of a sudden you might like UCLA because UCLA might be UCLA, and then they might have NC State, and then they might have Oklahoma State and Maryland. They might have an easier bracket. So now I like UCLA to make a deeper run this out.
I mean, I see it, but it's like then again, it's like this is not this. Like this is March. I mean, they don't call it March Madness for no reason.
Yeah,
but
upsets happen.
I know. But it is, especially because it's a one game. You have to play it all that one game. You got to leave everything on the line. But here's the thing: it's always like playoff basketball. It's not the same as regular season. It always come down to experience. You're talking about a team with girls who probably been here their whole career, ever since they touched college basketball, and every time they play for South Carolina, the expectation is national championship or bust.
Yeah.
Like ain't no in between. You either you win it or you don't. So they have tough coaches. It's like I said, you're going arguably is one of the greatest coaches of all time, especially in my opinion, one of the greatest coaches in modern day era. So you're going to get somebody like her she's going to be prepared. This is what she does. Like, this is really what all the chips matter. This is when they perform their best. Obviously they don't have their star player, like they did years before, because last season they had Camila Cardoza. Prior to that, they had Leah Edwards. Then you have the Adrian Wilsons. You have all those players. They don't have those type of players, but they have stars. They're brooming.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, coaching is a huge deal in the women's game, right? Like Gino Auriemma, Dawn Staley. You're looking at all of these women coaches you're like, okay, I kind of like this because I like the coaching, right? It's like Michigan State with Tom Izzo.
Oh.
Like Tom Izzo's probably doing his greatest coaching job of all time this season.
We actually finna get into them real quick, because right after this.
But yeah, it's when you're looking at coaches in the women's game, it transcends things, and you all of a sudden you start making picks based off of that, right? Like Michigan State might go up against, let's say Memphis in the round of 32, but you're going to pick Michigan State because Tom Izzo's their coach, and Tom Izzo just makes the Sweet 16 every year. So it's just kind of the same thing in women's side, because you'll probably have South Carolina and UConn making deep runs just because of Dawn Staley and Gino Auriemma. It's just the way that they are.
If I was but now let's get into that. I would definitely not pick Michigan State because of Tom Izzo. I would pick Michigan State because of one player, Jace Richardson.
He's a dude.
He's a dude. He came out of nowhere in recent time to make his mark, as now he's considered a lottery pick. So that means so if the name Jace Richardson sounds familiar, he is the son of Jason Richardson, who's arguably one of the greatest dunkers of all time, out under Vince Carter and Michael Jordan. But definitely Jace Richardson, he's definitely a guy who's stepped his game up recently. So, and with the men's side, who do you see, like, because actually it's actually getting that time for tournament play. A couple tournaments starts tomorrow. Then you have a lot like the Big Ten, they're starting March 12th.
Yeah, when you're looking at sort of the conference tournaments, right? I think the hardest one to pin down is going to be the SEC, right? Because anybody in this tournament can win this tournament. I mean, they are legitimate. They could have 13 teams in the tournament.
Yeah,
they could. I mean, you're talking about Auburn is ranked, Florida's ranked, Alabama's ranked, Tennessee's ranked, Texas is ranked, Kentucky's ranked, Missouri's ranked, and not to mention you still got Ole Miss, Arkansas Arkansas too, man. Look, I'm telling you, Arkansas. When you're talking about coaching, there's a coach that could take a team to on a run like that you just don't see coming, right?
Look, he is my favorite college coach because he coached my favorite player, Derrick Rose, to John Calipari.
Yeah. John Calipari,
and I got to see him at Tom Izzo in action last season when I went to a little tournament style game when they played at the United Center, because it was a game that actually made me turn into they didn't play each other, but they played the other teams. Yeah. It was a game that with that Kentucky played that made me turn into a Rob Dillingham fan because the way he played and all that. I got to see Arkansas, one of their better players, DJ Wagner, play.
Yep.
He didn't have the best game that show in that game. But it's John Calipari. You can't argue with him, because if you want to argue with him, then all I have to do is just say, go look at his NBA product.
Yeah.
Like look at the type of players he put in the league. He put in MVPs, Rookie of the Years. Some of the greatest players of all time, are going to be from John Calipari league.
Yeah.
And like his products produces, even when.
And as good as Auburn is, I mean, look, Florida is just as good. Alabama is just as good.
Tennessee with Mark Sears.
Yeah, I mean, those teams can absolutely win the SEC. So I think that's probably the most wide open. The one that I'm most interested in, though, in watching is the ACC, right? Yeah. Because I like Duke. I like Cooper Flag. I like what this team. I'm a Duke fan. So I like what this team is about this year. But man, Louisville and Clemson are pretty damn good. North Carolina, they know they have to win to get in. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So now you put a UNC team out there that knows that they have to win the tournament to get in. Man, anything can happen when your back's up against the wall, right? So I know they haven't had the greatest year ever for North Carolina, being at 20-12 this year.
Right.
They've had a decent conference record, but I just, man, I expect Duke to run away with it, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see them get eliminated in the second or third round by one of these other teams.
Also, I mean, I love how you mentioned the conference. There's one conference that you didn't mention that we gotta mention. Big Ten. You cannot mention it. Especially with the new additions of UCLA and USC. Yeah. So the Big Ten is, they're arguably, one of the best sports conference, if not the best sports conference in all of sports as far as college wise. But then they have, they have the two-headed tandem in Rutgers, with Ace Bailey and and Dylan Harper, who along with Cooper Flag, in my opinion, are three franchise players. Yeah. And they're the 1, 2, 3 in the draft.
You look at the Big Ten and you expected the Big Ten to be what the SEC was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you looked at these teams and you're like, oh wow, they might have 12 or 13 teams preseason. You're like, they could have a deep run. But now you look at Michigan State winning the conference. They won the conference. Illinois got easily 3 NBA players on their starting 5.
I was gonna get to them.
The Purdue Boilermakers, that's my guy, Trey Kaufman-Renn. I've had him on my podcast. He was coached by one of my best friends in high school. Like I know Trey Kaufman-Renn pretty well. I root for Trey Kaufman-Renn, but Wisconsin is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Michigan, if Michigan can hit its threes, they're lights out. But if Michigan's not hitting from downtown, they're dead in the water. So
it's like Michigan State unfortunately, they're looked at as the favorite for good reason. Not only did Tom Izzo, you have a guy like Jeremy Fears Jr. who's gonna take over a game, but then Jace Richardson is their budding superstar now.
Yeah.
Then you have Illinois, with Will Riley, who's been coming on of late.
Will Riley's a stud.
And he's definitely, one of our highest. He's one of Illinois' highest recruits.
Casper Jonas.
Then Tom Izzo from Slovenia.
Yeah.
So so Illinois has some guys, and then for Illinois, they're more remarkable because I think like maybe 1 or 2 players are on their team returning from last season. So this is literally a whole new team.
Yeah.
That they have on the floor, so majority of these guys have never played with each other prior to this season. So for them to do this, shouts out to them. They're coaching, they're real coach. They plays the game the right way. Then you have a guy like, obviously you're gonna go to Rutgers, with Dylan Harper and then Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey, some say that he's actually better than Cooper Flag. I'm not gonna hop on that bandwagon just yet, but like I said, I do see, but I can understand why they say it, because where Cooper Flash suffers from 3, Ace Bailey can shoot. He's like, he gets a lot of comparisons to Tracy McGrady. Then you have Dylan Harper, obviously, who has Chicago roots as well, because he's the son of Ron Harper Sr. and the younger brother of Ron Harper Jr. So definitely.
We got a comment in the stream. My son's watching. It says, "Hey, Dad, what's going on? Thank you for joining the show. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Appreciate everybody out there watching, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube. Leave us a comment in the chat so we can pull it up, talk to you, have a chat. Let us know what you guys are thinking about this stuff too."
But definitely but who do you have as your Cinderella team potentially? Like, is there a team that you looking at that might be a Cinderella team?
So I do play-by-play for the NEC. And so for me, I'm definitely going to be picking up I'm probably going to be picking up Central Connecticut to win a game in the first round. Their defense, dude. It's either them or St. Francis. So they're going to play in the championship tomorrow night. St. Francis plays a zone defense that is the strongest zone defense I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they will cause a team to only score 40 points in a game because they are that locked down. And if you're not on fire from the perimeter, you're not scoring on them. So I can see a St. Francis or a Central Connecticut team. Central Connecticut's kind of run through this conference all year long. But I can see either one of those teams winning, here and there. But if you're talking about like a Cinderella as far as like, who can possibly make a run in the tournament, I mean, maybe a Marquette. I can see Marquette making a deep run. They're just always one of those teams. I can see I mean, hell, you go back to the ACC. I mean, even a team like Notre Dame, if they get in, can make a deeper run. So that's where I would have to go. Maybe St. Mary's even. You think St. Mary's got a deep run in them? St. John's, I think, and I know St. John's wouldn't be a Cinderella, but man, what a season they're having and a coaching job that they have right now. So yeah, I think that's where I'd go. I'd probably pick Marquette as a sleeper.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't, man. I mean, I haven't really too much seen it, so it's like I said, so I'm gonna take your word for it, but I'm definitely gonna be looking into it some more. I mean, like as March Madness come, I'm definitely gonna be watching more games. Probably still gonna be rooting for hopefully Arkansas, if they make it, I can see them make some runs too. I know their chances. They probably have to win this, win their conference in order to make it. But Illinois definitely gonna be a team that I want to see make it. I'm probably truthfully told, I'm kind of excited for next season. We get to see some players go, like some obviously you get to see your Bryces, your Elijah Arenas to make their debuts in college. Get to see how they run. And I want to take time to talk about Bryce. And I've been watching some of his games recently. Obviously they try to compare Bronny to Bron, but it's like, which is impossible. Bryce probably has the better comparison because he's a little bit bigger, but even then, I still don't think he's a Bron comparison because of Bryce. They have different games. Like Bryce can take it to the hole, but Bryce is, he's one of those type of guys he could shoot. Which is something that Bron struggled with, until later on in his career.
Yeah, I think Bronny shouldn't even be in the NBA. I mean, let's just be real about it.
Agree to disagree. Agree to disagree.
You think Bronny is an NBA player?
Agree to disagree. I think nepotism plays. I think nepotism is in all America, so we just have to welcome it.
No, I'm fine with that. I mean, he's there. I'm not going to take anything away from him.
I think he has NBA potential because here's the thing is
after a couple years in the G League and developing
less than that. I think it's all about the way you play him. You force, like I said with Bronny, I see him. You force his game to be more so like it's like you force him to go Drew Holiday. If let's go to Drew Holiday route, let's go to Deontay Murray route. Focus your energy on defense. If you could play defense, you could stick in the league. Like it's like Kawhi Leonard said, start off with defense. Once you play defense, they're gonna have to play you. And that is being the NBA, by them have to play you. You're gonna get touches on offense, and then you can show you that.
I'm not saying that he should never be in the NBA, and I'm not saying he's only in the NBA because of LeBron. I mean, he is only in the NBA because of LeBron, but
it helps. That helps.
He's not right now. He is not better than a lot of guys that are not on NBA rosters that are stuck in the G League, but it's because his dad is LeBron James. I do think he can develop. I think there are parts of his game that can develop. He can shoot from the perimeter.
Yes.
He can handle the ball. Can't play defense worth a lick. He's too small to drive. So I don't see. For me, for the next couple of years, he's there. Bryce is probably closer to LeBron, but he's still not. Saying that Bryce is closer to LeBron is like saying that in a
comparison to Bronny. So that's,
you know what I mean. Like,
but
LeBron's
it's like
one of the greatest players of all time.
But
he's
here's
not
the thing:
greatest player of all time, but he's one of them.
No, he's not. But
yeah,
it's like, but here's the thing though. So it's like when I say that, I'm only comparison as in within that household, like with who we compare it to, as far as his kids. So it's like, the fact, but it's like even then, like I said, he's not a Bron because, and I've been watching some of his game recently,
right,
and his confidence is picking up, which is scary because like a confident Bryce is not something that a lot of teams want to see because of his ability. Like he can literally take over a game. He's plays somewhat better defense,
right?
Because obviously he has that length and he has that silky smooth shot that I love so much that he can legit shoot. Like probably one of the better shooters out his siblings.
I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, look, you've got to look at. I mean, it's just tough, right? Because you're still you're still comparing apples to oranges right now. One's playing in the NBA, one's playing in college. Like it's not the same thing. But I mean, when you're talking about like Bronny James, who is what, averaging a little over 1 point a game, and is averaging 4.2 minutes a game, like it's not. It's tough, right? Like this is a guy who in the G League might be able to average 10 points a game, might be able to hone his craft in a little bit more. But I think you're doing the kid a disservice by having him just sit on the bench just because his dad is LeBron. I think you're doing him a disservice. It's not a disservice to the team because the team's thriving. The team has a bunch of studs on it. You're talking about LeBron and Luka and these guys that they have on this team. Like, I think they can be an NBA Finals type team. But I think you're doing Bronny a disservice by having him on the roster.
Point of fact, he's doing actually when he does play in the G League, he's averaging closer to 14, 13.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you can develop it. There's nothing wrong. That's what I don't think people understand. I know LeBron wants to play with his kid, and I get that. But you're doing him a disservice by bringing him up to a level that he's just not ready for yet.
True. I mean, and so right before we wrap up the show, who is your pick to win it all this year?
In the NBA?
Yes.
I mean, it's really hard to go against the Celtics. It really is. But I will be betting on the Lakers. I will be throwing something down because right now they are 14-1 to win. So to throw $20 down on the Lakers to find with LeBron and Luka.
Yeah,
Luka Doncic, who averaged 30 points a game in the finals last year.
Here's my take. Listen to me. Hear me out on this one. On paper, amazing. Until you realize that their game is too similar to each other. Like you have two offensive, amazing players. Great. But they're ball dominant guards. Like they're both ball dominant. So it's like, so when they're in a game, it's like that game kind of offsets. It's like one of them, they needs the balls to thrive. Obviously, Luka's gonna shoot. He could shoot, but him being a shooter, that type of shooter that LeBron's need, is not possible. Luka needs to make plays. You need that Luka magic for Luka to be.
LeBron has turned it on since Luka came to this team. I mean, in 16 games that they've played since they acquired Luka, LeBron's led the team in scoring 9 times. I think, and I know now he's out with the groin injury and all that stuff, but I think he just hit a different gear. I think he was like, all right, it's go time, and I mean, it doesn't. It'll be hard pressed for me to take a guy who's top 5 all time in LeBron James, maybe arguably the best player in the NBA right now in Luka Doncic, and bet against them, especially in the Western Conference that's wide open.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. That's the Western Conference, so it's hard for me to go. It's hard for me to go with them, knowing what I know is like one of them. It's like it's about sacrifices. You have two guys who's in their careers, like, any other team, they're probably not gonna sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's like how can they work it out in a 7-game series? Like who's gonna do what? Who's gonna
against like OKC?
Yeah, when you have a OKC who knows their hierarchy, it's like, okay, Shea is this guy. When we need this shot, Shea is this guy. He's gonna do that. Then you go against a Minnesota who's starting to hit their mark. Like Anthony's this guy. Anthony Edwards, who's not humble, but who has every right to not be, because when he makes plays, then you go against your guys like a Denver, who understand, like, okay, this is Jokic's team. Murray's gonna make this shot. Portis can make these plays, and Russell Westbrook filling in. It's like Russell Westbrook could do this as well. So it's like them two, Murray, that Russell Westbrook, Jokic.
Even if you get out of the West, you're going to either have to face Boston or Cleveland. And Cleveland's been ridiculous this year. They just beat Boston last week. So, I mean, for me, it's hard to pick against Boston. But if I'm going to pick a team out of the West, I think I'm riding with the Lakers.
I mean, let's go. I don't know. I'm probably going to go OKC. I mean, obviously, I want to go Minnesota, but the Karl Anthony Towns trade set them back. Julius Randle, I don't think he fits in well with them as better as Karl Anthony Towns did.
Yeah.
So that set them back. Like I said, but OKC probably be mine. Denver will probably be a close second. Minnesota third because I love them. And as far as the East, I hate this. Cleveland to be my number one. Celtics to be my number two.
Wow.
I mean,
back-to-back champs. Like
as good as the Celtics is, Cleveland has been on a tear. I know postseason is not the same as regular season, but it's hard. But it's like in Celtics, they have a great bench. They have great depth. But with Cleveland and that tear is like, you have Donovan Mitchell that could take over. You have a guy like Darius Garland that could take over. And that's just your guards. Then you go on the inside, you have Jared Allen, who is a pretty much fear to throw 2.0.
I just hope that's the Eastern Conference Finals, man, because they've played 4 games this year. They're 2-2.
I would love to see them in the Eastern Conference.
They've played some really tight games as well.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think it would be fun, a la like the Bulls and Celtics of like 2010, when that series was probably the best basketball series I've ever watched.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I got it. I'm not mad at you for your picks for sure.
All right. With that being said, it's been a nice talking to y'all. We see y'all. Unfortunately, the week after next. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do the show next week because of it's St. Patrick's. It'll be St. Patrick's Day, and I have to work. So I would be definitely. So I won't be doing the show next week. But it's the week after next. I would definitely be doing it. We're gonna keep out. Now I have more updates for the Bears. Hopefully they make some more plays. More signings. See y'all next time.